Mefew, which is, of course, Guernsey. I can't. You see, here we go. I've got to the trouble.
You can say Mefew, but you can't say.
Yeah, I can say Mefew. I can say the Achtung in the Guernsey language. Guernseys, I think it is. That's Guernseys for Achtung. Many thanks to regular listener, smooth as my clean-shaved chin. In fact,
I barely recognise you. I can barely recognise the person I'm looking at.
I'm in the land of the double take with a mirror. Huh, who's that?
Yeah, but it was really uncanny because you sent me all those photos of you doing it. And then there was just a bit where you had a little wispy goatee and a tash that would have made John Frost proud. And the weird thing was, you could have put an airborne helmet on you, whisked off the goatee, and you were Anthony Hopkins.
But you know what? My dad, the Colonel, had that moustache for the whole time, you know, when he would get in his Denison at the weekend and go off to do TA. He had that tash, that para-tash. And so the times when I have shaved a beard off, you always do it, don't you? I mean, and
a little
you
play,
end up,
bit of face for fun.
Yeah, exactly. And you leave the tash up, and then maybe go down for the full Hitler and all that. And but whenever I've done that, I've looked in the mirror with a moustache, and there's my father looking right back at me, and it's like we can't be doing that. We can't.
And how old's the Colonel now?
83.
So does that kind of make you think, God, that's what I'm going to look like when I'm 83?
Yes, it does.
See, that's what I think is really weird, when someone looks just like their father.
Yeah, I know, it's very peculiar. Anyway.
I've always been tempted to grow an Errol Flynn and never quite had the nerve.
It requires nerve, doesn't it?
It does.
It requires nerve. But I always used to think I couldn't grow a beard and it would come out patchy, but it came out very strong.
It looked magnificent.
It's gone now.
Yeah, it looked very Nordic.
It's in the bin. Anyway, a huge thanks to regular listener Nick LeHouret, who very kindly got in touch from his home in Guernsey to give us Mefew. He actually went to the trouble of contacting the island's language institute and got this response from Joe Dowding. Hello, Nick. I can confirm that a translation of Achtung would be Mefew. Mefew means attention in the language of Guernsey, which is Guernsey, pronounced with a soft G, like the word gin. So je ne sais. It's three syllables. Je ne sais. There we go.
If only you read down a little bit earlier.
Got there in the end. Guernsey is the second largest of the Channel Islands, occupied by German forces during the Second World War, as we know. Joe says, I will be listening out for the podcast. Best wishes, Joe. Or is it Joe? Joe Je ne sais.
And of course, Guernsey in the Channel Islands weren't liberated till the day after, were they? Till the night.
That's right. Left till last.
Yeah. I mean, that was pointless, wasn't it? I mean, if you think about Hitler, sort of, I've got to reinforce this place and make sure it's absolutely impregnable because that'll rub the British noses in it. He spends equivalent of billions, kind of reinforcing and turning it into a fortress, which the Allies just completely ignore.
Yeah, well, no point doing that then, is there, lads?
Utter waste of time. Yeah.
But I mean, it's almost like he had a concrete salesman's catalogue, isn't it? Cool. Tell you what, I fancy.
That one would look really good on Guernsey.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Let's go for it. Yeah, exactly.
You're licking his thumb and flicking through the catalogue. Well, I really like that one. Oh, that would look super on Jersey.
Mein Führer, we have put in another bunker. Which one? Is it the big one? I mean, that's basically what it boils down to.
Is it the one with the embouchures looking to the sea or the one just looking down the beach? Goodness me.
We did talk about concrete the other week, didn't we?
Yeah, I know how to make a bunker.
Yeah, maybe the return of Chalk Valley History Festival, pour an enormous bunker and then have to dig the fucking
just have it on the top of the hill, sort of, forevermore. A magnificent casement. We could import some cheap labour as well.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. We look forward to Chalk Valley History Festival returning, but maybe it doesn't. You don't need to go that far, James.
I don't think we do.
Obviously we're going to get into stuff in a moment, but cricket's back, right?
Oh God, yeah. Next weekend I've got a double whammy. We're having a sort of intra-club match, Chairman's 11 versus the club. So that's just can't wait. And also we've got a test match on Wednesday as well. So along. I'm not working on Wednesday. I'm gonna watch it.
I got too much to do.
Yeah, well, you're busy, aren't you? I mean, I was writing a good reading a good chunk of your. It was fantastic. I sat down in the sunshine yesterday afternoon. Rachel brought me a lovely bit of cake, nice cup of tea. Sat down and read it. I had a really enjoyable hour reading your 30s and Second World War bit, and I've got to say it was jolly good. I was.
Thank you.
I was unbelievably impressed with how much you managed to cram in an incredibly coherent and non-declinist way in such a short space of time, whilst at the same time making me laugh. Particularly when you think it's quite a serious subject. I thought you absolutely nailed it.
Well,
You're for a winner.
Thank you.
I mean, 1066 and all that is still being read, isn't it? I don't see why they shouldn't read 20th century and all that in years.
Well, I hope they will. I mean, it's been interesting. Compressing the information is the sort of is the hard bit without getting anything wrong, because obviously you don't want to leave a. If you're leaving a thing out, you're leaving it out for a reason. You're not leaving it out to omit it. You're leaving it out because we've got to push the story. I mean, a lot of the arguments about movies about histories. The propelling the story is more important, but also you don't want to get anything. You don't want to get anything wrong, if you leave something out of because it's it's basically the 20th century in Précy with some jokes. So you got without being too selective. I mean, I'm now going through like a second draft, so a big gag pass now. So it's the that's not funny enough. We need to bump that up, or that's a bit thin, or you could put it better, because I was like a turn of phrase if I can find one. Then when a joke arrives, it doesn't feel like such a sort of random happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want the whole text to feel considered. But I'm now going through it again, and I've really got to sign off this week. And we're going for funny pictures with captions as well. That's the other big thing that's got to go into it. So that's the next job, is the art design, and which is hard, because you need someone who gets it, basically.
Yeah, you absolutely do.
But
have you got someone lined up?
We've got some options from the publisher, but then I'm going to France at the end of the week. So, and I'm either going to go. We talked about that Halifax site where there's that crashed Halifax up in the Pyrenees. I'm either going to go there or to Milan, where the site was, where there was a sort of last stand, and take some proper pictures and find out a bit more of the history about it, because it's quite hard to find out about. Ananyway, and we're going to try and do a live.
I thought it was really, really good. I really loved it, and as I say, I laughed out loud loads of times.
Good,
and it was enormously entertaining, and
that's what you're after,
which is exactly
good,
what you want.
Excellent.
So
right,
big
now,
tick for you. Well done.
Oh, thanks, James. Thanks very much. At least you're not going.
I'm off to Studland in a minute, which is exciting, because it's our wedding anniversary was back in June, but COVID rather got in the way. But today, there's a really nice hotel down on the coast called the Pig on the Beach. It's absolutely fantastic. Oh my God, I've
never been there.
Oh, it is amazing.
You can never get in.
And for me, so we booked it because my oldest mate Giles was supposed to be coming over for his 50th birthday party, which was supposed to be on Saturday. So the plan was for me and Rachel, Giles and his wife Judy, to go to the Pig on the Beach today to have the post-party debrief. Where you bitch about all your friends and everything. And that was, we were really looking forward to that. But of course, because of COVID, he now can't come over. So we're taking Ned with us instead. And so Ned's coming down. But what really puts the icing on the cake for me is just at the end of the lawns, and the end of the grounds of the hotel, is Fort Henry.
Brilliant.
Which is a sort of...
And they're open. They're open again now, are they?
They're open today for the first time. And we happened to book it, and it just so happens that the day that the Pig is open is the day that we had a booking.
That's a stroke of luck. So
I might have to slope off down and have a look at, if Fort Henry's up to something, we'll have to go down there, won't we?
Brilliant. Excellent.
We have Ways lunch and Bunkerfest.
God, fantastic. I mean, just
the food there is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I know
really,
that.
Really
Yeah.
I mean, you have to take out a small mortgage to go there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we all got birthday vouchers to go, but it is really worth every penny. It's amazing.
Brilliant. And there's concrete to perv on as well.
Yeah. I mean, what's not to like?
Right, now, a couple of things before we delve into your emails. And by the way, we've had a ton of brilliant correspondence, and we've read the lot and hopefully replied to most. This week, we've got a new free audiobook on the Independent Comedy website, which I read a while ago, actually, and we've sort of been stalling on putting this out because we went through that sort of content gasm, didn't we, with the We Have Ways of Making You Chalk and all that sort of thing, and we just wanted to make sure the time was right to put this out. It's the big show.
I think people can have too much of a good thing, can't they?
I think they definitely...
Listening to you and I... whistling on.
Absolutely. So it's called The Big Show. It was written by a French pilot who served with the RAF called Pierre Closterman. Chapter 1 is up on the site today. And it'll be released a chapter at a time for the next 3 weeks or so. There's lots of it as well.
Such a wonderful book. It's such a wonderful book.
Yeah, and it's different to One Man's Window in that this is a sort of series of snapshots. The way he writes it. Some of it's quite short little headings where he'll take you through a sortie or take you through an impression of arriving somewhere, what it's like, what the personalities are like, and he sort of builds up this cumulative picture of what it was like being. I mean, he is so experienced. He flew Spitfires on sweeps on rhubarbs. He flew Spitfires at high altitude, defending Scapa Flow from reconnaissance flights. He flies,
and he could fly anyway, couldn't he? Because he'd learned to fly in California.
Yeah, exactly. He flies clip wing Spits in sorties on V2 sites, and also this guy. The other thing about Pierre Closterman is he knows his planes inside out. So you do get these passages where he goes, and the problem with the this Spitfire
Tempest.
with the clip wings. And it's the Spits that are really bad at anything other than low altitude that he really hates. And they're meant to be flying top cover for hurricanes, and they can't fly top cover because their Spitfires don't perform at altitude. And he gets right into the detail of it, and it's really good. And then he gets into typhoons, and then he gets into tempests, and it's also, there's some interesting stuff about. He's pretty bitter about when France is liberated, and he goes down to Paris, and he says there's all these people swanning around saying they were part of the war effort. Who are like, who are you? Oh, you've been in the RAF, have you? So what? And he's like, I've been out risking my life every single day.
Yeah, what were you doing?
What were you doing? Sat on your ass in Paris. It's really really good. And in a completely. I think what's really been good about these air combat books is you absolutely are in the cockpit. I mean, you were in the cockpit with Dennis, and you're in the cockpit with Pierre for this book. Absolutely in there in the thick of it. With it all going on,
and it's funny because it's really good from the word go. I mean, when Jeff Wellham does his first flight in a Spitfire, that's a really memorable passage in First Light. But so is Pierre Closterman's first flight in a Spitfire as well, which he does. He takes off in the snow, doesn't he? Or certainly in winter.
That's right. Yeah.
And the book just gets better and better and better. There's a wonderful bit where he arrives back in Normandy for the first time, and because it's such a big moment, he's put on his number one French uniform, not his RAF uniform, especially. Yeah. And they land, him and his mate are in the same squadron. They land and get absolutely covered in dust, and their uniforms are wrecked within about 30 seconds.
He wrecks his uniform and regrets it. But then,
those last sequences of flying in kind of early 1945, when he's flying Tempest over Germany, they're just amazing sequence of flying.
Yeah,
really,
he really went through it as well, because he's sent home from Normandy for being a speed addict, basically, and washed out. Yeah. Anyway, so chapter 1 is up on the site today, and it'll be released chapter at a time for the next 3 weeks or so. If you've downloaded this podcast on the first day it's released, Tuesday, July 7th, then launching tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, Gurglebox on Wednesday the 8th. So Wednesday night we got Gurglebox. Now this is an episode. This is our first attempt at this. So this is. Bear with us. It's experimental.
It's experimental. Right? It's like being in Recklin.
Exactly. But what it is, it's Band of Brothers. And remember, we're starting with Chapter 2, Day of Days, because no one wants to watch an episode of Olive Drab Friends. And it's 9 o'clock UK time. 9 o'clock. You need Band of Brothers on your telly, and then the regular live stream on a computer or laptop or phone. Now, this is on the Patreon. Right, so it's like the live cast we do on a Thursday, except it'll be 1 hour and it'll be us watching Band of Brothers, me and James wiseacring, or just going, fuck me, this is great, right? You in the message stream and us all just enjoying it together, as if we were going to watch a football match in a pub together, but it's Band of Brothers. Yeah?
And
I know which side
this
I'm
week,
rooting
hopefully
for.
Tomorrow, Tuesday, we're hoping to speak to John Orloff, who wrote that script of Day of Days, and also episode 9. And he's a really nice guy, so that'll be fun.
That'd be fantastic. Okay, so you need Band of Brothers on your telly and then the regular live stream on your computer or laptop or your phone. James and I will be in vision, babbling on about whatever's on the screen. If you've never seen Band of Brothers before, you are in for a treat. You really are. I'm
definitely going to be wearing my jump jacket.
It's terrific. I think I'll wear my Denison and be a lost 6th Airborne bloke. What am I doing here?
So you wouldn't be, because it's Band of Brothers. So we go, oh, I say, what's going on here?
Oh, God.
Because that's how all British people speak in American program.
I watched Saving Private Ryan the other day. But we'll get into that another time. That's not for now. Anyway, if you
go on, just say it.
Well, no, there's just that little bit of dialogue where he runs into Ted Danson, and he goes, "Man, he's overrated," and you think it's what, day 3? He didn't take Khan, and without Khan, you can't take Saint Lo, and you think, actually, mate, Saint Lo's your problem. Not mine.
Well, we might have to do a gurgle box on Saving Private Ryan, because I think both of us will probably have a little bit more to say on that than we do on that.
Anyway, so you get the idea with Gurgle Box. We put Band of Brothers on, and you watch it on your telly or however, and then you've got us on the live stream on your computer, or your laptop, or your phone, or your iPad, or your tablet, whatever. And we'll be in the corner like this, like for a live cast, chatting. And we're live streaming as usual on Thursday night. We are. Last week's was more preposterous than Where Eagles Dare. If you see me opening a bottle of wine or whiskey at the start, settle yourself in for the evening. I really enjoyed last Thursday. And what was really fantastic is football is back. Sports are returning, but people are coming in the same kind of numbers on a Thursday night to watch. So that's been really fantastic. And again, that's on the Patreon. Finally, now, here we go. We're delighted to announce that, and this is really, really exciting. We're delighted to announce that we've signed a deal with Waterstones. Hurrah, I hear you cry. More details on Thursday, but members of the independent company, so our Patreon members, will get 30% off books chosen by us.
Now,
3
that's
this
decent.
month.
That's
That
decent.
is really, really, really good. 3 this month and plenty more to follow. We're curating a collection of stuff we think that you would enjoy.
Yeah.
So
well done,
30%.
Rachel Holland, for organising that little deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think to thank her, you need to take her to look at some concrete defence emplacements and stuff.
At the end of the grounds at the Pig on the Beach.
Anyway, so that's a 30% discount with Waterstones via the Patreon. So if you're a member, there's a little tickler for you. Talking of which, do not buy the book of the new Tom Hanks film Greyhound, which is actually C.S. Forester's The Good Shepherd. It's brilliant, and that will be the first of our books at 30% off starting this Thursday. So our Waterstones deal starts on Thursday, and that, I mean, it's not actually a tie-in with the film. Us doing that, it's just that it's in the ether. And those C.S. Forester books about the Navy during the Second World War are amazing. Really, really great.
Yeah, they really are. Yeah. The ship's absolutely another absolute winner, which we're trying to do something with as well. Now, we've had lots of correspondence, and we've decided today to concentrate on the flood of emails that have swamped the We Have Ways towers. Our latest pod elf, otherwise known as Rachel or Mrs. H, has been through the lot and picked out some crackers for you. Yeah, she's really enjoying it, actually, because she always says, "Oh, how long did the war last? 6 years? I've been living it for 18." and I mean, so the other night I suggested we watch the Death of Stalin. I said it's really good. She goes, "Well, it's not about the Second World War, is it?" And I said, No. And I said, and Alf said it's brilliant, so we really, it'd be really good to watch. She went, "Oh, okay then." She said, after about 20 minutes, she goes, "This is utter shit. I can't be doing with it at all," and stomped out. No. And then last night she wanted to watch a film. It's like, whatever we do, as long as it's got nothing to do with the war or tanks in it. It's like, so despite her, dislike and lack of interest in the Second World War, she is really enjoying and finding interesting reading all these emails. And that's because they are. We've had some absolute crackers come in. So, from Oliver Brown, who's been living in Sweden for the last 10 years, what was Sweden's role in the war, spelled ROLL? So you want to go, well, their favourite one was a chocolate sponge with cream.
It had a roll mop in it.
Yeah, exactly. I know officially they were neutral, but just how neutral were they? As there were a large amount of Swedes in the Waffen SS along with the trade of iron ore, but towards the end of the war, when it's clear Germany won't win, they suddenly become more supportive to the Allies, allowing the use of airfields and selling iron ore to the Allies. Was this just Sweden backing quietly who they believed to win and hoping to profit from it, or just not ending up like their neighbours Denmark and Norway? Any clarity on this would be great, and please keep up the great podcasts.
Well, it's trying to stay out of trouble, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Don't forget they're the wrong side of Norway.
Yeah.
For access to the sea.
Yeah.
So in other words, they're a bit land. I mean, yes, okay. So they've got. I don't think they've even got any. Have they got any coastline? I'm not sure they have, even up in the Arctic. So they're a bit stuffed. They've got some. They've got obviously into the Baltic Sea, but that's frozen over half the year.
Yeah.
So how do they get stuff? How do they survive? How do they actually sort of get any food, any resources they need? They do that by kind of sort of being neutral, but obviously having to do deals with Nazi Germany. So I don't think it is that they're particularly pro-Nazi. I think they're just sort of realpolitik as such that without kind of selling iron ore to the Nazis, they're a bit stuffed.
Yeah, I mean, and Swedes joining the Waffen-SS. I mean, the thing is, National Socialism as a sort of as a racial concept, political concept, isn't unique to Germany. It's present in other societies in other countries. Yeah, I mean, and there's in the 20s there was a sort of attempt to create a sort of pan-European National Socialist thing that actually Hitler didn't want anything to do with to start with, because he was trying to hang on to the power he had locally in Bavaria even, and you even get when they try and move the Nazi Party to Berlin, he won't have it. Yeah. And throws his toys out the pram over that, and actually quits over it, and is coaxed back into the party. So although we think of Nazism as being from a German wellspring, it's present elsewhere, and certainly all over Europe. And so Sweden, that doesn't that there were Swedes in the Waffen-SS and a large amount of them doesn't mean that Sweden is necessarily more or less pro-Nazi than other European countries were at the time. I think that's kind of fair to say. I think
it is. And also, if you were a member of the Norwegian Underground, for example, quite often your escape route where you had to go and lie low, you would cross the border into Sweden and hang out in Sweden for a bit, or you'd escape from Sweden back to Britain. So there were all sorts of neutral countries. It's not straightforward. And actually, Sweden's attitude is not dissimilar to Switzerland, really. No, actually, no. That's not true. In many ways, it's more liberal than Switzerland.
I mean, the thing is, as ever, there are multiple Germanys too. Like if northern Germany is more in common with its Baltic neighbours, than southern Germany, and so it's part of the problem that nationalism tosses up, is the idea that all people are going to behave in one way or be like each other. But you know what I mean? I mean, I think Sweden obviously. I mean, I think it's a good. Was Sweden just quietly backing who they believed would win? I think it's more that they're trying to stay out of trouble.
Yes, I'd agree with that.
And they did not want to end up like their neighbours Denmark and Norway. Absolutely not. No, I mean you wouldn't want that.
You have to. I mean, just take Spain for example. It is clearly got much more in common with Nazi Germany than Britain, and yet it keeps Britain sweet because it knows that if it doesn't, the tap of supplies from Britain is going to be cut off. And so it's doing this kind of sort of they're doing what they can to survive. I mean, and also don't forget that of course there were major plans in 1939 and into 1940 for a joint Allied invasion of Sweden to take the Gualilor iron ore fields. They were actually going to send an invasion force and invade Sweden.
And ball bearings and so on going backwards and forwards, and mosquito flights with people in them, and all that go. I mean, the other thing is the Allies stay out of Sweden because it then offers them a conduit into Europe too, that they can get stuff in and out. Because I mean, after all, why not? Why wouldn't Sweden sign up as an ally? Because it would get invaded. Why would Sweden not sign up as a member of the Axis? Because it would get invaded. I mean, there are firm arguments for staying out of the Red Army's way as much as there are firm arguments for staying out of the way of the Nazi.
Well, don't forget the Red Army invaded Finland, which is Sweden's neighbour.
Exactly, and I mean, you only have to look at what that's like to see why Sweden is definitely trying to avoid either fate. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
And anyway, being an ally of the Germans is no guarantee that they'll leave you alone either. Okay, well, we hope we've answered that adequately. We're going to take a short break now, and we'll be back with a couple more emails. welcome back to We Have Ways of Making You Talk. Mefiu. I can pronounce it. I just can't say whatever the word for Guernsey is. Right.
Je ne sais. Je ne sais. No, I can't say that.
God, it's like you were born there. Right, I'm absolutely loving the podcast. And yes, I am over 60, says Miles Dixon, surgeon to John Cat's-Eyes Cunningham. I was interested in your reference to the Bristol Beaufighter as one of the forgotten planes of World War II. I'm a surgeon and had the privilege of treating the late John Cat's-Eyes Cunningham some years ago. Amazing. I've always had an interest in Second World War airplanes, perhaps due to my father's war experience flying Typhoons, and I quizzed John Cunningham about various aspects of his experience as a night fighter and the planes he flew. He told me how much he enjoyed flying Mosquitoes, but was happier shooting down any enemy bombers flying the Beaufighter. The reason was that the radial engines of the Beaufighter were unaffected by the debris coming off the enemy aircraft, whereas he invariably had to shut one of the Mosquito engines down to prevent overheating as debris entered the Merlin engine's air intake.
Wow. That's brilliant. Well, I'm a massive fan of the Beaufighter. I think it's an incredible aircraft. They've got one at Hendon, haven't they? And it's just absolutely awesome. I mean, the thing about the Beaufighter is it's just bristling with weaponry, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's absolutely armed to the gunnels with cannons and all sorts of.
I mean, in a way, it reminds me of the difference between the Thunderbolt and the Mustang. You know, like the Beaufighter Mosquito. It's that kind of. You've got
one's feline and refined, and
and the other's like, all right, come on, have it. Yeah, so it's one's like a sort of like a refined, the refined lines of a sort of thoroughbred, and the other's like brute force. It's like a cutlass or a rapier.
Yeah. Well, I've got this great mate called Rick Hillam, who's actually a professor of physics. So he's a scientist, but he's also don't laugh. He's quite into dowsing. Okay, he believes in it, and anyway, so he said, wouldn't it be fun to go and find one of the shot down aircraft near you, and we could sort of dig around and see if we can find anything. Oh yeah, I'm all over that. That bit sounds brilliant. This was some years ago. Anyway, so he did a bit of research and found out that in Alverdiston, which is literally 2.5 miles as a crow flies from home, is the remains of a Junkers 88 shot down in May 1941 by John Cat's-Eyes Cunningham in a Beaufighter.
Really?
Yeah.
And did he get his sticks out and find it?
Yeah. Well, I'll comment that. So anyway, so there was this guy who lived in the village who was a farm labourer at the time, and he remembered watching it. You know, he was walking. It was the end of the. It was like he said, it was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was the end of the working day. He was walking back with a horse and a cart, leading it back to the farm, and he saw it all happen. And he went up, and we went up to this field. He said it came down right here, and so we went to the field. And we went out with the metal detector stuff, couldn't find anything at all. And of course, the bulk of it would have obviously been removed a long time ago. But you'd had lots of debris there. So anyway, then we got out his dowsing rods, and it was a really weird experience. He said, "Okay, you just hold them in your hands, hold them firmly, but not too tightly, and just picture the plane, but imagine it." And anyway, it led me about 100 yards further up the field, and just like that, we found a whole load of stuff.
Shut up.
I kid you not. I absolutely swear. I can't explain it. Anyway, it was all very weird. But it definitely happened. And anyway, so we found the remains of his young. I've still got a bit of armour plating in my little den.
Incredible.
Yeah.
When you find a wrecked aircraft, are you supposed to call Hendon or someone and say we found
I don't know. I mean, we're talking about little bits of rusted metal, so no, we didn't. We just
is there a treasure trove on a thing like that? If you see what I mean, or an equivalent.
Maybe one of our listeners. I mean, I think a little bit of scrap of a metal from a Junkers 88. I mean, literally. There's nothing to say that it is what it is.
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that it's very obviously armour plate, the bit that we picked up. But I mean, there was nothing that sort of said Junkers on it in sort of aluminium or anything like that.
But I mean, I'm wondering if there's a RAF archaeological unit that maybe.
There is this amazing Richard Osgood, who is the kind of MOD's official archaeologist. He set up an amazing thing called Operation Nightingale, and this was originally for the rifles, and it was people who'd suffered some kind of trauma on duty in Iraq or Afghanistan. I mean, usually kind of losing limbs and things. Yeah. And it was to try and rehabilitate them through archaeology. Yeah, and so he led all these amazing projects, and they dug up a Spitfire, the remains of a Spitfire up on Salisbury Plain, and I went up there to kind of watch them do it and everything. It was amazing. And obviously, when you're properly doing archaeology, the whole point of archaeology is you've got to bag it up, make a note of it, and then you've got to do a report on it.
Yeah.
I think it's slightly different if you're just sort of bleeping around and sort of, really, it's not a proper dig. It's just kind of finding a bit of loose stuff that's sort of just under the surface. I think it's slightly different.
Were they at Chalk a couple of years ago with a tank? They'd found a tank, and or was that?
Yes, in the First World War. Yeah. He's a really nice guy, Richard. Actually, we should get him on. He's fascinating.
That would be brilliant, and maybe we could find out.
He's a lovely fellow as well.
Because after all, the southeast of England must be full of bits of Dornier and Junkers 88 and Spitfire and Hurricane and
absolutely.
Although I expect the British wrecks were more likely to be recovered than the German ones. Am I right in thinking that?
No. It depends how they wreck. If they're plummeting straight into the ground, that you might go 20 feet into the soil. It depends. Again, it depends on the depth of the soil, the hardness of the rock, and all sorts of stuff. But what would tend to happen is if a plane goes straight in, it goes in. And the only thing that you'll find remaining now really is going to be
the engine block.
The engine block, and that's about it. Because everything else will just the aluminium will just go. But if it sort of glides in and sort of crashes, it might all be a bit of a mess and then blow up. But the bulk of it would then be towed away. And the scrap would be regurgitated again into another aircraft. Yeah. But inevitably you're going to get, particularly when there's an explosion, you're going to get lots and lots of bits scattered all over the place, and that was what was really interesting about that exercise. But anyway, that was a Cat's-Eyes Cunningham victory.
Incredible.
Yeah, I can't remember the precise date. It was something like the 20th of May 1941.
But, the nerve, though, of thinking, I'm going to have to shut one of the engines down now because of the debris in the air intake. In a combat situation, I'll turn the engine back on now, and it coming, hoping it would come back on.
It's amazing. Cat's-Eyes Cunningham. Everyone really, really loved him. When you talk to people who knew him, his fellow pilots who were lifelong friends, people who knew him. They just the awe with which they talk about him is not just because of his skill as a pilot. It's because, by all accounts, he was just the most marvellous human being. Yeah, I never met him, sadly, but.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for that, Miles Dixon. Now, do you want to read the next one, or shall I?
I'll read this one. This is from David McEwen. Oh, no. Okay.
Aye, enough. Watch yourself, boys.
This is Invernessian for Achtung, words which would have been heard frequently as the Highland 51st clambered up the slopes behind Wadi Akre in April 1943.
Yeah.
I just want to say what a totally fantastic podcast. Oh, thanks, David. I've immersed myself in it these last few months of lockdown. One very small but noteworthy issue, already addressed by others, is your continuing liberal use of the word amazing. Please do try and use alternatives sometime, e.g. knockout, heard being uttered by the salesman and Reggie Perrin. In its fullest form, it can be extended to Knockout City, Arizona, if it's a truly amazing point you wish to underline. Oh, I'm not sure about that. That's a rubbish idea. Sorry, David. Don't agree with you at all. I was reading a pictorial book on naval warfare in World War II. I came across a passing reference to Frederick Rutland, who was a pioneer naval aviator awarded the DSC and bar in World War One. First World War, you're British. He was interned for most of World War II, Second World War, you're British, and committed suicide in 1949, having provided material help to Japan during the 30s and early 40s in their development of a naval aviation capability. This then led me to William Forbes Sempill, 19th Lord Sempill of Craigievar Castle, Aberdeenshire. He seems to have had a long entanglement with Japanese espionage over 20 years, culminating with him passing transcripts of discussions between Churchill and Roosevelt in Newfoundland in August 1941. He seems to have been a particularly treacherous individual. Forbes Sempill, do you have any observations? Keep up the great work. The podcast is amazing. Knockout
City, Arizona. That's interesting, isn't it? Because the Japanese did get help, didn't they? And Taranto is the thing that they studied in particular, didn't they? Yamamoto was particularly interested in Taranto as a sort of way of doing things with Pearl Harbor in mind. Yeah. And he did get help, didn't he? Rutland did help the Japanese. It's sort of it's interesting, isn't it? Because
Forbes Sempill, he'd be someone to look up at Q, wouldn't he? It'd be interesting to see whether there's anything on him, a file on him or something. Get to the bottom of it. That's the great thing about those archives. Sometimes you really can unearth these completely forgotten stories and find that actually there's a lot more to it. If he only gets a gentle slap on the wrist for what he's done, there's got to be a reason for it.
Yeah, Yeah, there's maybe something else he did in the other direction.
Double agenting or whatever.
Yeah.
And it may be that the information that he passes between Churchill and Roosevelt in Newfoundland in August 1941, there was nothing particularly sensational anyway. I mean, to be honest, there isn't. Yeah. I mean, they don't. There's the Atlantic Charter, isn't there? And there's they agree to kind of there's all sorts of things.
And anyway. And anyway, in August 1941, Japan isn't
part of the Axis, isn't it? But it's not part of the war.
It's not part of the war.
It joins the Axis on the 30th of September 1940.
Yeah. So actually, what is the relationship with Japan? And all through 1941, the Americans are. Well, you could argue they're not doing a very good job of it, but they're doing their best to try and make sure that it doesn't come to blows with the Japanese in the Pacific, aren't they? They're
Well, the big thing about the Atlantic Charter is the reaffirmation of the ABC-1 agreement that's agreed in March 1941, which is that they're going to do a Germany first policy should America ever get into war rather than the Pacific. But of course, in August 1941, that makes perfect sense because of course Japan isn't in the war.
Isn't in the war, yeah.
Of course, so that's why there's a few nerves from the British before the Arcadia Conference in December 1941, when they, as soon as America's in the war, they hurtle across the Atlantic to really kind of make sure that America sticks to its guns on this post Pearl Harbor, which of course it does. But maybe telling the Japanese that is a way of actually deterring them from war. I
actually think it's interesting that the way that David put it is that he said Forbes Sempill seems to have had a very long entanglement with Japanese espionage over 20 years, which may mean, like you say, a bit of double agenting. It may be that he's trying to find out what they know. And all that sort of thing. Anyway, that like you say, he's worth looking up because there may be more to it than this. So I
think as you know, I'm a massive fan of Roosevelt. I think he was absolutely incredible. But I think he played the wrong hand with the Japanese in the summer of 1941. Because Kono is the prime minister, and he's a dove, not a hawk. And he's preparing to make all sorts of concessions to the American demands, about their stance in China and kind of, moving in or out of French Indochina and now Vietnam and all the rest of it. And it's really interesting, all that period. And the assumption from the Americans is that they can be really bullish with the Japanese because they won't, under any circumstance, be stupid enough to go to war. And of course, they get that wrong. And that is. They completely misread the runes on all that. Yeah. Anyway, fascinating. I'd never heard. Well,
but everyone's misreading everyone else, aren't they? Because the Japanese think, well, we'll knock them out of Pearl Harbor, and that'll shut the Americans up.
But I think they hope that that's the kind of best case scenario. I think the Japanese just feel like that they've been sort of there's Tojo, who is just a total hawk, and so it's part of their destiny to go to. They're just itching for it in a kind of sort of. I don't know. I mean, he's a...
Well, like in the way that Hitler's itching for a war.
Right, exactly. I think it's exactly the same. It's like exactly the same mindset. But there is also this feeling that, yikes, we've just got ourselves into a complete pickle here because, we've got the Chinese, we can't backtrack from China, but at the same time, we can't win in China either. And we've got this burgeoning urban population. What is it? 80 million or something in Japan, which is a tiny place. They can't afford anything. They can't afford to kind of grow any more than they are. And so it feels that they're completely stuck. And so the only alternative is to try and get these resources from elsewhere in a kind of sort of new Pacific bloc. But to do that, they've got to make sure they don't have any interference from the Dutch or the British or the Americans. Yeah. And so Pearl Harbor is the only means of buying them time to get to a position where they can come to an agreed peace with the United States to their favour, as opposed to the war not turning out entirely to Japanese favour. That's just amazing. I'd have forgotten that line, which you put in your book. It's just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite
how did he stay as emperor right till his death?
Well, that was Phillips brought that up, didn't he? The sort of the reverse ferret acquired. Enough questions. I just want to read this last thing out from Andrew Faulkner, who wrote to us with regard to the Ethel Lote podcast. I've only just stopped crying. Puts all this COVID stuff into perspective. I'm finished moaning about my own problems. What an inspiring chat. I've listened to nearly all of your podcasts, and to hear from someone who was there at the time has knocked me sideways. Thanks to you and Ethel. Well, thanks for listening, Andrew. It was fantastic to talk to Ethel. Like I say, I said earlier, there's tons coming this week. Even as James and I prepare to go on holiday. That's it for today. Remember, Gurglebox starts tomorrow, Wednesday, July the 8th, 9:00 UK time. Episode 2 of Band of Brothers, and what we'll all do is we'll all line up and we'll tell you what to do on the live cast. Don't worry, is we'll all have watched the start and have the music lined up, so we start at the end of the opening credits. That's the idea, to start at the end of the opening credits. So what we won't be doing is, because most of the episodes of Band of Brothers start with the veterans. So we won't be doing our boring nattering, our stupid inane nattering over the veterans. We'll let them have their say, and then we'll start at the end of the credits.
Imagine starting that. Oh God, this guy's a bit dull, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And the opening music. I mean, I think the opening credits on Band of Brothers are one of the only things that dates the program start. Is they're long. There's a lot of music at the start. A lot of opening credit. Well, so do I. But you kind of wouldn't get that nowadays. So
skip
HBO
intro.
The old days. Exactly. Skip intro. We're not going to skip the intro. We're going to start at the end of the intro. So we look forward to you joining us on Wednesday night for Gurglebox, and then we are live streaming as normal on Thursday. I expect we'll have lots of Band of Brothers to talk about. Do listen to
post John Orloff as well.
Especially post John Orloff. Do listen to the new audiobook, The Big Show. Let us know what you think. Our Twitter handle is @WeHaveWaysPod. Thanks for listening. See you all soon. Cheerio.
Yeah, I'm dusting down my jump jacket, and until then, at ease, trooper.